Hello, everyone. So last week there was an official announcement about the One Piece live action TV show directly from Oda. And the live action TV show, it was one of those things that was announced back in 2017. So it's been a while since we heard anything about it. And I feel like my brain just kind of forgot about it. So when I read the announcement, I was like, oh yeah, that was a thing or is a thing. Apparently, it turns out that the series is going to be developed for Netflix, so we'll be able to catch it on Netflix once it airs, and Oda is executive producer on the show. And FYI, there's also a Cowboy Bebop TV series that they're doing, but they had to stop production for a couple of months because the lead actor of the show got injured. By the way things are going and superhero movies being as successful as they are, I think it's pretty logical to assume that it's only a matter of time before they announce My Hero Academia live action. I think that's pretty obvious that it's coming at some point. But I guess a question regarding the One Piece live action TV series is, like, why now? Because Oda has stated that he has refused to give away the rights previously to do a live action. So what's going on? Well, there's a change going on in Hollywood. I mean, I know that Oda has said that he has faith in the showrunner specifically, but there's also a change going on in Hollywood. It's the movie screen versus home screen kind of migration that is going on. Whereas before, you would get a movie and it would peak in popularity and it would ride that wave for a while and then it would die down and then another movie would come out like maybe in like a couple months and then people would like hype that up. Whereas now, we have all these streaming services that are producing tons and tons of content. There's so much stuff being produced that you can barely keep track of it all. So it's a new market that's shaking things up.
It's actually one of the reasons for why I really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's because even though it's set during the 60s, it talks about something that's very relevant today, which is about the end of an era, the death of the movie star, essentially. Because there are no movie stars anymore. I mean, there are celebrities, but not movie stars. And when I say a movie star, I mean like people that were like kind of untouchable myths in the past, like people that were so high profile that they were idolized into oblivion, essentially. And in many ways, I feel like social media has contributed to the death of the movie star because before, the only way that people could connect with celebrities was by sending them letters through the mail. Nowadays, you can just look them up on social media or meet up with them at conventions.
Which is kind of cool in a way because what it's done is that it's taken the concept of a celebrity and it's brought it down to our level. To the point where you can actually meet these people and see them and be like, wait a minute, you're not untouchable. You're just a normal person with a different job than I have. But then the flip side of that is that you also have a rise in people who consider themselves influencers. So there's both pros and cons to this whole thing, but the point of the matter is that fan culture has changed dramatically. But then again, so is cinema, because the way things are now, big studios are more hesitant and less likely to invest and take risks when it comes to new creative projects, unless they can guarantee a big profit.
So unless your movie is a remake of something that is already popular, or a reboot, or part of a series or a franchise that can be milked for more than one installment, it's actually really hard for you to get your movie made. And that's actually one of the reasons behind why Martin Scorsese said that Marvel movies were not cinema. It's because movies like that usually get a lot of the funding while other movies never get made. And it's also why a lot of creators have to turn to platforms like Netflix to get their projects funded. But what does this war that is going on in Hollywood between franchised Marvel-like movies versus smaller scale standalone movies have to do with One Piece? Well, we've already established that it's always better for a studio to have a successful movie series rather than just one successful movie. Because not only does the studio make more money that way, but if you think about it from an actor's perspective, if you get hired to be part of a series as an actor, then you technically have longer lasting job security, because it's a recurrent role in these franchises, right? So it's why half of Hollywood is part of the Avengers, They make bank doing their superhero thing for Marvel, and then the ones that are really passionate about acting, they go on to do smaller projects. Like an example of this would be Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. I mean, there are other examples like, Robert Downey Jr. doing Doolittle, or, Chris Evans being in Knives Out. But like Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, I think are a perfect example of this because they both star in these massively like big Disney-owned franchises, and then they both decided to sign on to be in Marriage Story, which had a much lower budget. So that's kind of how that, they really care about acting as a craft.
So there's this back and forth when it comes to actors that goes from movies to streaming service series and then back to movies and, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm bringing this up when it comes to the One Piece live action because I do think that that's going to play a role in who gets casted when it comes to the crew. Now, personally, I would like it if they casted mostly unknown actors. I know some of you have said that you want their race or their nationality to match with what Oda thinks the Straw Hat's nationality would be in the real world. So, for example, Luffy would be Brazilian, Zoro would be Japanese, Nami, I think, is from Sweden, Sanji is French, Usopp is African, Robin is Russian, Frankie is American, Brooke is from Austria, I think, and then Chopper is Canadian. A Canadian reindeer. That's going to be a tough one. So there's that whole thing there. But at the same time, I remember reading an article about Oda saying that he already had an ideal cast for who should play the characters. So I think it's important to note that if he already had an ideal cast back in 2017 when that article was published, then that probably means that, the actors that he had in mind back then were relatively well known, because in order for him to pick them, he has to see them in other things, in other movies or shows. Now, the cast hasn't been officially announced or confirmed, so all we can do is speculate at this point. And I don't have a lot of ideal picks. I only have 4 ideal picks. And when I say ideal, I mean I know this will never happen. This is just me fantasizing over this. However, in a perfect world where dreams do come true, I think Dev Patel would play a mean Usopp. I think he's a great actor, and I think he would find the role pretty challenging to act like Usopp, so I think that would be a nice fit. I think Emma Stone would work well for Nami, or for Reiju, if the show ever gets to Whole Cake Island. And call me crazy, but I would say Gal Gadot for Robin. I think there is a certain amount of sophistication that Gal has, that Robin has. I think she can play her well. I also think that Robin being a translator and knowing how to read the poneglyphs works well with Gal being bilingual and having that accent. I just think it fits. But again, these picks wouldn't happen in the present, in reality, because Emma Stone right now is busy doing Cruella, which is the 101 Dalmatians live action remake for Disney. And Gal Gadot has Wonder Woman coming out this year, so yeah, she's going to be very busy. I mean, Emma Stone, she's worked for Netflix before. I've heard her as a narrator for like a mental health series, and she was also in a show called Maniac. So she's worked for Netflix before, but then also signing on to be in a series is a longer time commitment. And I don't know if they would be interested in that. However, because of everything that I just mentioned in the beginning portion of this video, I'm pretty confident that we can expect at least one big name. So the question is, if we could expect one big name to be cast, who would you want it to be? And finally, I think it goes without saying that I would cast Jason Momoa, Aquaman, as Kaido, if we ever get to Wano.
Again, the cast for the official One Piece live action show has not been officially announced yet, but I was able to identify an actor on Twitter that was throwing hints of possibly being casted as Zoro. His name is Louis Tan, and you can see here, there's a picture of Zoro. A fan put that up, and then look at what he replied. He said, literally me. And then after the official announcement was posted, the one by Oda, he replied with the 2 swords emoji, which, I mean, that's a huge hint. And then not only that, but then afterwards, he tweeted the official One Piece Netflix account saying, where are the pirates at? And then Zoro. So it looks like it could be him. And just an FYI, he's a martial arts expert. He knows a lot of martial arts, different styles, and he performs his own stunts. I saw a video of him on Twitter using katanas, and you can obviously tell that he knows what he's doing. In terms of his resume, it says here that he was in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. He was also in Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, and he was also in Deadpool 2. And in terms of shows, he was in Iron Fist, which was another Netflix show, and then he was also in Into the Badlands. Steven Maeda, I think that's how you pronounce it, is the showrunner for this, That's his Instagram account, and as you can tell, he posted a joke about him auditioning his dog to be part of the show. And then he also posted this picture here with the pirate bounties on his wall. And I don't want to be super critical, but I do have to say that one of the things that really bothers me about this picture is that Law's bounty poster isn't Law's bounty poster. Like if you've seen Law's bounty poster in the manga, you know that that's not the picture that the Marines use.
It's just something that stood out to me because I'm overly obsessed.
But even then, like beyond adapting the characters, like my biggest concern is how are they going to adapt the world? Like the world of One Piece is really wacky. There's tons of wacky stuff in the series that works very well because it's being shown to you as a comic, as a manga. Like Luffy's Gum Gum Balloon. Like when has something like that ever not looked ridiculous when it's been translated into live action? Then again, you know, and to be fair, there are things that you can do in manga and in animation that you can't do in live action, but there are also things that you can do in live action that you can't do in manga and animation. And I think that's going to be the key. In order for the One Piece live action to be good, it has to play to the strengths of the live action genre. Because if it tries to be a cartoon, it will never live up to the source material.
Now, this is just my opinion, but the way that I would have handled the live action One Piece TV show is to not have it follow the Straw Hats. I would have actually done something like Amazon is doing with Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings series that they're making is that they're going to set that series way before the events of Lord of the Rings. I think HBO was also like planning on doing a spin-off series for Game of Thrones, but it would also take place way before the events of Game of Thrones. So I would have done something like that. So have the story be set in the One Piece world, but have it happen either before or adjacent to the journey of the Straw Hats. Because here's the thing, all right? I think that people like me that are invested in the story, in the manga, we can't get enough of the One Piece lore. Like we are obsessed with like the world building and the little secrets and the Easter eggs that Oda drops all over the place. So I think at that point, like we could be following Kid, you know, before his journey to, before he gets to Sabaody Archipelago. We could follow the supernova during the 2-year time skip, but as long as it's the world and it's like, oh, like we're getting more info. And this is, I think this is going to be key. I think that the show should focus on giving us stuff that Oda has decided already that he's not going to expand on in the manga. Especially because of the really fast pacing that we've been getting in the manga, I think the live action show could be a great opportunity for Oda to expand on things that are just glossed over in the manga. Because we want that lore, all right? Heck, Reverie is one of the most popular arcs post-time skip, and the Straw Hats aren't even in that arc. That's just the way I would do it, just my 2 cents, but obviously I'm not a showrunner, I'm not a producer, I have no idea like what it takes, you know, to bring these series, you know, to life. So I mean, I'm just putting it out there. That's just the way that I would handle it, but take it with a grain of salt. That being said, I also think it's important to remember that even if this show, even if the series live action One Piece show is not good, we still have the manga. You know, a lot of people think that the anime for One Piece is trash, so they don't even watch it. But they like the manga. So it's not like the show is going to take anything away. You know, it's not like, oh, like this is going to ruin One Piece. No, we still have the manga. We still have the weekly chapters. That's still going to be a thing. It's kind of like, I kind of like equate it to like Disney with the remakes. I watched Aladdin with Will Smith and I thought it was all right. Like, you know, Jungle Book was all right too. And I don't think they're the best things ever made. They're just kind of like, whatever. I mean, some of them are pretty bad, but the point of the matter is that at the end of the day, I can always go back to watch the classic animated Aladdin or the classic animated Lion King, right? Those movies didn't take that away from me. So I just think it's important to remember that, you know, even if the live action bombs, like it doesn't take anything away from you. I mean, and it might even bring in new fans to the series. So I'm personally cautiously optimistic. I've said this before because Oda seems pretty confident in the project, in the production. So I think, you know, I've trusted him enough with the story that I'm like, okay, like if he is confident, then I can be cautiously optimistic about this. So with that in mind, I just want to end this by sharing this quote from Oda from a while back. He said, I'll be going into uncharted territory, or at least something that hasn't been done before. I feel some fear in a way, but also carefree. If there was someone who had already succeeded in this genre, I'd have pressure from the critics to match those expectations. But since no one has succeeded yet, there is no fear of failure. I want to do a lot of new things from now on, and I'm really looking forward to it. I feel like that's a very Luffy type of mentality that he has for this show. You know, because if you fail, at least you tried, plus nobody has succeeded anyway, so who cares? But if it's good, then, you know, you actually achieved something that was not achieved before. So yeah, it's kind of reminded me of Luffy. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about the One Piece live action down below in the comments. Like the video if you did. I appreciate that. Have a great week. Catch you guys later. Take care. Bye.